Okay, so here I'm going to go over some of the algebra topics that you might see on the ACT. So one of the big things that appears a lot on the ACT is the y equals mx plus b, or the equation of a line. Remember that the m represents our slope or our rate of change, and our b is our y-intercept, which is your starting point or your initial amount. So this could be used in an application problem. It could give you an equation, ask you for a graph. There are lots of ways that they can use this linear equation. Systems, so systems of two or more equations with two or more variables. Usually they don't go above two variables. So they might ask you to find x and y. They may ask you to do it by graphing. So graphing the two lines and knowing that the point where they intersect is your solution. Substitution and elimination are another way to solve those. If you have a graphing calculator, you can always use it and find that line of intersection. GCF is also something else that appears. It might not just be with numbers, it may be with polynomial factors as well. So what is the biggest number that all of your values will divide into? Okay, so it gives you an example here. If you have 18 and 30, 6 is the biggest number that will divide into both 18 and 30. A lot of people mix that up with our least common multiple. That is the smallest number that both of them can go into. So for instance, here it's using 8 and 12, and the least common multiple is 24, because 24 is divisible both by 8 and by 12. Factoring, you will have to know how to factor a GCF, which is your greatest common factor that we talked about a second ago, as well as a trinomial type. So something like this here in the example says 2x squared plus 11x minus 21. And that is equivalent to 2x minus 3 and x plus 7. So they may ask you to factor it. They may say which one of these is a factor of. So that's another way to ask that type of question. Quadratics. There's a lot on quadratics. It could be graphing. It could be square root, method to solve. Factoring, quadratic formula, any of that could be included in algebra concepts that would be on the ACT. Functions, this is substituting a value for x. So evaluating, say, finding f of 3 in a function. That might be something that they're looking for. You may be able to use the calculator to do this. This also may be saying, what is f of x plus g of x? Combining functions, so on and so forth. So that is a possibility in the algebra part as well. Parts of a graph, knowing how to find an x-intercept, a y-intercept, the minimum, maximum, your vertex, zeros, roots. Really, you need to know that all of these things here at the end are exactly the same. Vertex, roots, and zeros mean exactly the same thing. Logarithms. If you have had Algebra 2 or a college algebra class, you would want to know that logs are inverses of an exponential function. So a log is really an exponent. So you have to be able to convert from one form to the other, and it kind of shows you how to do that here. And they say base answer power. That's kind of, if you were in Algebra 2, a lot of teachers teach it that way. There is a button on the calculator. If you have a graphing calculator, you can hit alpha window, and there's a log base button. If you don't freak out. There's not a ton of questions like this on there, but they are possibilities. The properties of exponents and the properties of logs are very similar. So if you know your properties of exponents, you can probably figure out some of them with logarithms. So I hope this gives you an idea about the different algebra topics that you might see on the ACT.